Hello and welcome to the Retro Asylum. It's the Ted Dabney Experience team.
Hello, Dean.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Now, guys, I've been listening to the show and I've put this out there a few times. I think you're the best retro gaming podcast come along in a long time.
You say the sweetest things.
I do. But you're really doing something a little bit different, I think. You know, you're speaking to real legends. They've made some absolute classics. And you're 9 episodes in, is that right?
We are, I think, possibly 10. No, or yeah, you know what, you're probably
producing
right.
the 10th
We've
one.
got a few in the can. I think that's the technical term.
Yeah.
We're always 2 ahead, so that's what always throws me off. I think we're about 11 in the can, 9 published. I think that's right. Something like this anyway.
Cool. Right, I'd better introduce you to our listeners anyway. So we've got Richard May.
Hello.
Richard, you collect arcade machines and you're also a listener of our show, and that's how I know you. Paul Drury.
Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. We have met, you might not remember, but...
Oh, no, I remember every moment. It was wonderful. We were on Grindr. I think it was Grindr.
It might well have been. Yeah, for those who don't know, Paul Drury is he's a writer for Retro Gamer magazine, and he's done loads of talks at retro events and very professional and knows his stuff.
Thank you.
And Tony Temple, Missile Command expert, world record holder.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've
Still hanging on to it.
Yeah, you've got a book out and you do your arcade blog and all that. So these are 3 guys who really know their stuff. So who came up with the idea out of the 3 of you? Was it joint effort or?
I think Richie is the one that floated the idea.
Well, Tony and I had discussed doing something together, as you do when you have a mutual interest. Thanks, Paul. Nearly.
Right.
And we were all at Free Play Florida last year, obviously pre-pandemic, and that was the first time I'd actually met Paul and got along with him instantly.
Oh.
And I said to Tony, why don't this needs to be a threesome. We're nearly there, Drury.
How far are we going with this?
Mrs.
Keeping this family friendly, and we and Tony said, yeah, let's do it. We went straight in with Warren Davis, who Paul and Tony already had a very good relationship with, so he was a natural first choice. But he's the consummate raconteur, and he was great and made our life easy for episode 1.
Yeah, and he designed Qbert. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think to your point, I think we're very fortunate in that where we're looking to talk to these old hands of the industry, they all tend to be obviously sort of slightly older in age, and so have a certain amount of world experience. And I think frankly they do make our job easy.
They've got plenty to talk about.
Yeah, I agree.
In the sort of I think in the sort of Michael Parkinson mold, I think if you've got your questions right, then your subject will just go with it. And I think we've been very fortunate in that all the people, I think without exception, have not been difficult. No. So we've yet to do we need to get this information out of this guy. It's I guess where our expertise comes in is knowing the subject to a certain point, and so doing a bit of research and then coming up with some insightful questions.
It probably refreshes their mind as well if you know your stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
We've been interviewing some people and we've said, so in 1974 and they've gone, did I? Yes, you did. Right. So we're serving not only to hopefully make an entertaining show, but we're serving as the memory for many of the people we interview who are in their 60s and 70s. Yeah. Some of them. And can I just say, I'm really pleased that we're recording their voices, because without getting all morbid, is that, they're not going to be around forever.
They're not going to be around forever, yeah.
And and because we're just focusing on that kind of 70s and 80s classic arcade era, it means that the people that were making games then are getting on a bit.
Yeah. Has it been doing this during the pandemic? Has it made it easier? Are people, are they at home? Does that make
they were at home, yes. Yes. I mean, yes, I mean, I'll answer that. But I would have said that actually it's helped because it's been something to do, isn't it, Richie? Something to do.
Yeah.
Because can I just say that
it's made my life easier because sorry, Paul, go on.
No, it was just that Richie spends hours and hours and hours carefully editing the show, and it's huge. I mean, for me and Tony, it's like you do the show, the recording, we prep for that, and it's kind of our work's done, and Richie spends hours. So
yeah, but I would say that it's a relatively equal distribution of labour because the knowledge is kind of weighted more on Paul and Tony's side, and certainly when we're coming up to do the show, we've got into a nice little rhythm where Paul and Tony primarily will do the show notes. And I'll kind of make the odd contribution, but I know that's safe in their hands, so I can my time is devoted more to getting granular, which is a phrase Paul likes, and I do edit really precisely and concisely, and every time I mention that, Paul laughs, but that's funny. When we speak to guests, we have to kind of we mention that from the start, and we'll say, we're going to take out the coughs and the sniffs and the and perhaps not the profanities on our show, but anything. We want people to sound good. We're not there to grill anybody because these are not the kind of interviews we're doing. We're promoting this history or archiving it, whatever. Yeah,
I guess you can't cut out certain bits. I mean, Atari goat burgers was a phrase I heard on the latest episode, which I thought was great.
Kevin Hayes, yeah, sure.
And stories such as like Atari Island, so interesting. We've known about the cabs being made over there, but to get an insight in the way that came out, that's great stuff, and I just think the show works so well. Yeah,
that's. I mean, again, that speaks to my point. That's Tony's area of expertise, certainly with Atari Island, because he had a wealth of information and obviously had established contact with Kevin well before we were interviewing him.
And I think that's it. And for me, the most satisfying thing is actually learning about the human stories behind the games. So it's very easy to just sit in front of a classic arcade and sort of think, this I'm really enjoying this game of asteroids, knowing it's Atari, but not actually thinking there was a guy who sat down and came up with the idea and programmed every bit of it, from the vector graphics to the sounds, and to get that insight from the guys who actually wrote those games is I think really, really gratifying, and I think it also, to Richie's point, I think it is important to record some of this history before it disappears. In another 30 years' time, it's going to be something long lost and forgotten about. So I think our goal really is to produce a body of work that's celebrates that really important era between the sort of mid 70s and the mid 80s. That set the rules for what is now a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah. What I think's good is that we don't just talk to the people that made the games. That is some of our shows, of course, are focused on the people that literally did the coding. But we also, want to do a spotlight on the people that helped make those cabinets. So we've had, you mentioned Kevin Hayes from, who was part of the production. These big coin-ups had to be made. They were physical things. Yeah. And the same with Doug Wismer, who produced monitors. And I remember when Tony said, let's get this guy on the show, he produced, his company made the monitors for games. And me and Richard were like, are you sure this is going to be interesting? Right? And it was absolutely fascinating because it's, it's more than just the game. It's the whole process. And I hope in the future, the reason it's called the Ted Dabney Experience is that we're trying to shed light on the lesser known people, as well as, of course, we'll have big names on, and we've already had some, your Mike Hallys and things like that. But it'd be nice to give some time to people whose stories perhaps haven't been heard as much.
Yeah, and I will say, and this is going to sound really rude, but sometimes you speak to some of the programmers and they're not the most interesting of people. They clam up. I know it's harsh, but I quite enjoy listening to stories from the other side of stuff, as well. So
I think as Tony mentioned, the people, and on one hand, this is 3 more white guys doing a show about games that we used to play back in the day, and we speaking to like a bunch of old white guys, essentially. But as Tony said, these guys have got a few miles on the road, and I think by this point there's a certain kind of wisdom which maybe they were boring and they were geeky back in the day, but they certainly like to talk about it now, and we've never really encountered any. Yeah. We don't get that much dead air, but maybe that's down to our questions. I don't know.
Well, you're editing.
Yes. Yeah. There's a very famous in the days of the Apollo moon landings. Kennedy visited NASA, and he was walking around, and he bumped into a guy, and he said, "Oh, hello. Who are you?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, my name's Dave. What do you do?" And he said, "I'm helping to put a man on the moon." And Dave actually was the janitor of the building. Right. But the sort of point being, it wasn't just the programmers who made the games. There were people who built the cabinets. There was someone who designed the artwork. There was a whole bunch of people. And really, the Ted Dabney Experience is about shining a light on, to Paul's point, to everybody, not just the big name programmers, but also the other guys, the secretaries at Atari, the guy who we interviewed who made monitors for Electra Home. Yeah. And they've all got really interesting stories to tell.
Yeah. Yeah, so not only the leading lights, but the supporting cast.
Nice.
We should put that in some kind of tagline.
I do like a tagline. And speaking very briefly, actually, I know you're on the clock, Dean, but, with regards to Atari, we have interviewed, actually, even though we haven't done that many episodes, we've spoken to quite a few Atari people, and, they'll all have different takes on essentially the same story. The old adage, there's three sides to a story, or there's three versions, whatever. And it's interesting. I think we've encountered that with Atari more than the others, but as we go on, I'm sure, I particularly want to speak to Jeff Lee, who we also know through Warren, and he'll have a different take, of course, on the early Gottlieb days. Yeah. And, we gradually, hopefully, we can continue to do this over a couple of years. And as Tony says, build a body of work. And I've kind of got designs on doing a book at some point. I don't know how that'll pan out. It's just yeah, no, you heard it here first. I've not made any plans, but it's percolating.
Cool. So, is there anyone who you'd really like to interview and you haven't had a chance to yet? I don't suppose you want to give away.
Yes, Donna Bailey of Centipede fame, who Tony knows and has been speaking to, but is yet to agree to anything. Because we'd like to interview some more women, and it's a fact that the industry was dominated by men back in the day, and I guess to some extent it still is. But we're all about talking to the unsung and the unheard, so that's really where we want to go. And we spoke to Jamie Fenton, who is known. Obviously, he was the developer and designer of Gorf, but he's also he's also known for being something of a trans icon. And I think that was really interesting to get her take on being trans in the gaming industry, and I think we'd like to push the boat out a little bit in that direction, not for the sake of being woke or PC, just because all shades and all colours and all types.
I'd say I'd really want to get on the show someone who admits to being in Nolan Bushnell's hot tub. That is my main goal, because no one admits. They all say it was there, but no one admits going in.
Yes.
So maybe he was just in there by himself.
What a horrible thought.
So Paul, do you do all the arcade collecting as well?
No, I've got a main cab. Does that count? And it's very small. It's on my desk now.
That's all I've got.
No. So no. I'm to be honest. Whilst if we ever go to a retro show, the first thing I would gravitate to is possibly a Gravitar, but a real machine. But I'm most interested in the people. Yeah. That's why I'm glad our show is about the people, and we talk to people. That I like the stories more than the cabinets.
You do have a very impressive collection of signed flyers, though, Paul.
I do. That is true. Yes. Thank you, Tony. That's very nice.
Very nice. About you guys, Richard and Tony, is there any arcade machines that out of your reach at the moment and you'd love? Or
no, I got myself a Star Wars. Yep. That was my grail, to use an overcoined phrase, and I'm happy that that's sat in my studio right now as we speak.
Nice.
My holy grail cabinet is a prototype Missile Command, and I wrote about it in my book. Yeah. Missile Commander, available at all good bookstores.
Shameless.
And sorry, that was a bit cheap, wasn't it? And so one of the sort of key stories within the book is the development and the creation of the prototype Missile Command cabinet, which is substantially different to a Missile Command cabinet you might find out on an arcade floor. Yeah. And I know where the last one is, and I know who owns it. And whether that'll happen or not, I don't know. But yeah, I'd say that. I was also very drawn to a very rare cabinet called Aztarak, which is extremely rare, but it's just a beautiful color vector game designed by a company called Century, who were based out of Florida.
Yep.
But yes, that's my.
And this.
That's.
Sorry, Tony. I was going to say the story of Aztarak is quite poignant in and of itself, and you can read about that at Tony's site, Arcade Blogger. It's quite a moving story, to be honest.
That's another thing I recommend is Tony's blog. Do check that out. Very, very good. So, guys, any other plans for the new year that you can reveal to us?
Well, if the world starts again, we'd really like to do some stuff live.
Yeah.
I think that's what we at shows, maybe in America. We go to Florida Free Play. So it would be nice to do things live, don't you think, boys?
Yeah, I do. I agree. And we've also just kind of partnered up. You know, we're now in association with ACAM, the American Classic Arcade Museum. So
yeah, I noticed that.
I think we're going to be speaking with Gary about potentially, as Paul says, extending that live thing to I don't know, something to do with ACAM. That will be my wish, because that place is magical.
Yeah. Right then, guys. Well, I wish you a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
Dean. Thanks for coming on, and I wish you the best of luck for the future. And all our listeners, please do check out the Ted Dabney Experience podcast. It is excellent. Can't recommend it highly enough.
Dean, thank you for your kind words and having us on the show. All the best for 2021, mate.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you, Dean.
You're very, very welcome.